what is the current affairs of today is the history of tomorrow. And why am I saying this? So let's take an example, Corona, right? I mean, today we are all witnessing all these things which are uh, unprecedented, at least in our lifetime, right? We haven't seen the 1920 plague, but I'm sure all these things that we are going to talk experiencing now is going to be history tomorrow, and we are going to be explaining it to people. It's interesting. That's the reason it's interesting. And I'm trying to connect it to what we spoke about yesterday when Govind, I don't know how many of you were there in the session yesterday, he spoke about disruption. And disruption is something, very interesting likewise. Think about it. We are witnessing certain things that, we are actually being part of certain things that are going on as we move in the world in the last, especially in the last in the last 1 decade. What is happening is what we are witnessing, and it's going to be counted as disruption in the next coming years. Let me give you a couple of examples. I'm heading to. A recent research report concluded that 88% of all the legacy banking organizations fear losing their revenue to fintech companies in areas such as payment, money transfers, and personal loans. 88% legacy, they worry about losing revenue to these. And it is estimated that by 2023, the global fintech market is expected to be around worth 306 billion US dollars. Of course, this is what I'm talking about. We are actually witnessing that, we are part of this, and imagine it's going to be counted as disruption in the coming years. Now, if you're thinking, how do I get to be part of this history? Certain things like Corona, we are already there. But I'm not talking about Corona here, but we are talking about fintech for a while. So how do we get to be part of this history? Of course, we can go and access more such reports in the market for a price. But what is priceless is to hear from our next speaker himself, someone who has made it big in this fintech industry. And that's why the topic today is also very exciting, which is 5 critical skills for moving into the senior leadership roles in fintech. With me, it's my pleasure to introduce to you all our speaker for tonight, Mr. Shanthan Subramaniam. Shanthan is a Senior Vice President, Global Head of Consumer Appliance Applications. He leads the team with the new payment platform department of MasterCard, championing the global multi-rail strategy. A senior executive with more than 15 years of experience managing technology and operations, product development at regional and corporate level for both startup and established retail and manufacturing companies. Shanthan is passionate about digital payment technologies and product development, motivated by industry's constant change and evolution to better itself. In his free time, very interestingly, though, I mean, this was something very interesting that I was looking at. Shanthan collects first generation Apple devices. How cool is that? So, I mean, we've all read about Steve Jobs, and we have uh, experienced what is an Apple One, Apple Two. I mean, I'd love to hear about that, but on a different time. But today, we are obviously excited to hear from Shanthan himself on the 5 critical skills to moving into a senior leadership role in fintech. So, without taking much of your time, I'll hand over the floor to Shanthan. Shanthan, the floor is yours, and we are looking for an exciting session ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Appreciate the opportunity that's given here. It has been, I mean, I've had a very fortunate life and a career, definitely. I think this is one of those opportunities where I get to give back to society, right? And give back to folks like you and everyone around in this call who's looking to succeed in their life. The key thing to remember is we all have the potential, and definitely we can get there, right? And we talked about my background quickly. So maybe I'll just give a quick highlight of what I've done, right, throughout my life, my career. And you can see what has happened. And I love to share my perspective. This is going to be my perspective. There's so many perspectives out there. Great leaders come up with prescriptions on how you can succeed. And you will see that some of them will apply to you, some of them may not apply to you, and your circumstances and situations may be different. So I've been fortunate to have wonderful parents who are passionate. Their passion was to make sure that I would grow up and be successful in my life, to an extent. And I think some of you will probably also experience such things with the love and passion that they had, to the point of not even thinking about the retirement. Today we think about retirement, how you're going to look for yourself in the future. For them, it's like, I'm going to spend all the money I can. And if you were coming from families who have who are descendants of Indian families, you will see that I will spend all my savings just to get you into a doctorate, right? Get a good education, good college, and stuff like that. So I was passionate. I was fortunate to have such parents. I was born and raised in Malaysia, beautiful country, fantastic world that I lived in, grew up, studied locally in a college down there, because I wanted to make sure that I could succeed without burdening my parents too much. My passion was always been in engineering. To me, I wanted to always build something new, be able to contribute, and I love math. So a combination of all these was something that led me towards working towards computer engineering. Right, I started coding at the age of 10 at that point in time, and this was one of the Apple computers that I had in my school, outside my school. It was not, the school didn't provide it. It was an outside school curricular activity. Passionate about it, loved the fact that I could control how computers would work. Wrote a couple of softwares growing up, automated some of the work that my dad used to do, and came out with a computer engineering degree. I was passionate, and I knew that was where I wanted to be, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. So by the time I was complete my engineering degree, then there was a question of whether I was going to do hardware or software and stuff like that. It seems there was an opportunity that came up in Singapore, neighboring country, a company called Ingenico, and that's where I started my first real job in the payment industry. And I was literally writing codes for a little terminal. Can you imagine today you talk about laptops with 8 gigs of memory, you talk about high resolution screens and stuff like that. These were small device that had maximum of 8K or 4K memory, right? They're so small. And we were writing code for those kind of devices, optimal code. I loved the time down there. We had security aspects of it and stuff like that. And what was interesting is these were passions that I had subconsciously behind the scenes throughout my life. Like even when I got my first job in Malaysia, I never liked cash. Okay, to me, cash was a 4-letter word, and a 4-letter word that I could not stand. I hate carrying cash around with me. Maybe it was because I couldn't keep my wallet in one place. I would forget where my wallet was. But that's something I always despise. To the extent that I remember when I had my first job and I got my first car in Malaysia, I would choose the petrol kiosk that would not accept cash and would accept a debit card, and only possibly that was the only debit card at that point in time who would accept payment from an ATM card. So it wasn't even a proper debit card from the big schemes today, right? MasterCard or what have you. It was a card issued by the bank, an ATM card issued by the bank that could be used at a petrol kiosk. What was interesting is subconsciously that was engineering and payment was my passion behind the scenes subconsciously, right? They were my passion. And coincidentally, I had this job as I was looking for opportunities. This job landed up in Singapore with Ingenico. I don't know if you guys know, when you go out there and you do a payment at wherever it is, at a restaurant, at a supermarket, or what have you, that this device where you swipe your card, you tap your card on, or insert your card on. A big company called Ingenico, they were the largest producer of this kind of payment devices. And this opportunity landed to me, on my lap. And it was perfect. I didn't even realize it. This was my passion that came. And what I did was, as I was applying for multiple jobs, I wasn't even sure I was going to get the job in Singapore, but somehow it landed on me, and it tied very nicely between these two passions of mine, being an engineer of software who loves to build new stuff, and an intersection with the payment industry, which is this terminal provider called Ingenico, and I was part of this company. So to me, and Menaka, if you can go to the next slide, I think here is something that's important that I know, and I'm a great admirer of what Mahatma Gandhi did. And to me, this quote completely embodies what drives me. Okay, now we talk about 5 leadership. I'll start with one guiding principle, a principle that constantly stays within me, that gives me the drive, and that is making sure, happiness. This whole quote is amazing, right? Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. Amazing, amazing quote. Now, this simple sentence here that he's put forward, even Steve Jobs has said it. Now, if I were to quote you what he said, he's also said something similar. Another inspirational leader that I look up to. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. Right? That's Steve Jobs, and you can see these are all interlinked in terms of strong underlying principle that drove me to be successful in my career, right? As I mentioned just now, right? So it was subconscious, and also there was a conscious effort in there saying, I would only do what I love to do. And that's basically how I got into the Ingenico industry. And work was not work. Work was joy. It was, I just loved what I do. Every day I look forward getting up and going to the office to do what I could do best, because I was, and innovation also came together with it. It was all tied. Every other aspect of what I was doing was tied with this passion, strong passion to deliver and work on this, this passion that I have. And automatically that is happiness. And then what do I say, what do I do, how I interact with my colleagues, all of them will just fall in place. I don't have to subconsciously think about, I don't have to consciously think about it, sorry. And that gave me the drive. It was an unbelievable drive, that I've had throughout the 5 years, 6 years that I was with Ingenico. And together with that, what happened was opportunity presented itself, right? Because everyone around you and the people you are with, you automatically give that aura. You start motivating people around you because they see the passion that you have. They want to be with you, and then they want to go with you or drive with you towards this goal that you are after, right? So that, to me, at that point of time, was just talking about making payments simpler. That was my passion, right? I looked at every means and possibilities from my engineering background and from my skills that I have to ensure I can deliver against that passion, and it's amazing. It's amazing how it drove me. It's amazing that I never saw it as work. I used to come back home 2 a.m., 3 a.m., or work late hours. I never felt that as work. I felt that as, a drive. If you love what you're doing, that just doesn't feel like it's work. Obviously, I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm not saying that, okay, you're truly working only if you're working 12 hours a day or 18 hours a day. Definitely not. That's not what I'm saying. Please don't take that as a point of view. Working smart, that's important. Working with a passion, that's very important. That's what you should take with happiness, because then behind what happens, you'll see, is everything else will fall in place. Everything else will fall in place. That's exactly what happened to me when I moved from Ingenico to MasterCard. There was an opportunity that came on MasterCard. Folks in MasterCard knew about me. I didn't even know. I didn't even go out and take an effort to expand. But nevertheless, somehow the work that I was doing was known beyond just the organization I was working in. And mind you, this is me as a software engineer, not someone who's doing sales or working out outside that organization, right? And that's somehow I got the opportunity from MasterCard. And guess what? As I was talking to you in my history before this, my passion was beyond cash. I really despise cash. I joined MasterCard, and within a year, you had a CEO who comes on to the organization, Ajay Banga, and I'm sure you heard of him, an amazing, amazing CEO, a true leader. He cites a mission for the company, which was interesting. He said, war against cash. That's basically how he started, gathering and rallying the teams within MasterCard, saying, this is how we want to move forward. This is exactly what the team needs to rally against. And that was a powerful rallying call that, I could completely relate to and kept me in this organization for some time. And he's also worked beyond that. He's today our mission within Mastercard is a world beyond cash, and we're still sticking to that guts, and we're looking to see how we can make the payment industry much better and where we can go. So to me, this quote here is something I think we should always keep in mind. To me, the guiding principle, almost a mantra you keep behind, in your head, that you should always know or feel truly happy with what you're doing. You should always have the passion, that drive behind the scenes that then, motivates your action, that defines your action, defines how you interact with people around you. And that's absolutely important. I would start with this. And to me, this is a guiding principle that I followed and I've been with all my life. And today is taken to me where I am. I've moved from one, even within MasterCard, fortunately, there's a lot of opportunities presented itself. And I've always moved along the passion of what I like to do, right? Even within the organization. While there's so many things you can do here, I can go back to engineering, do a passionate work down there in terms of coding. I can think about doing a sales activity related task with MasterCard, but I am a product development here because in the product development role here, because I see strong opportunity, a strong connection to my passion. And that's why I do what I do. And that's where I am in terms of the role that I am, right? So I would start with this, please make sure you're doing what you truly believe and love to do. Everything else then will literally fall in place. And that has been my experience. And I hope you will see, and you can also relate to some of the aspects of it. Menaka, we can move to the next slide. Thank you. So here, there's 3 tools that I would like to talk about. There are many tools out there. You will see 7 habits of leadership and stuff that works out there. I'm going to present just 3 simple tools that I've used and has been very, very helpful coming from mentorship around my various managers and people I look up to. Right. So first is the guiding principles, looking about working towards your passion, right? Working in happiness. And I'll talk about 3 tools, and then I'll conclude by talking about another guiding principle that you should always think about and keep in mind as you're working through your life, right? So let's look at these 3 simple tools, right? Transparency, I think is important within an organization, networking, and seizing opportunities. So I'll just talk about these 3. Again, I'll relate them to how I've used them in my life and how they've been they were crucial in terms of the success that I've seen and that I've gone through, right? Obviously, this is, again, my narrative. Things will work differently for you. And then the last guiding principle is something you should look at and think about. Menaka, we can move to the next topic. So what does transparency mean, right? What does that really mean? I mean, there are many ways to look at it, right? One might say that's just simply being honest. Yes, honesty is very important because what's interesting in terms of the human being and how we have, and depending on wherever you grow, we have this innate quality. And the first thing we're always doing as we're interacting with someone new or wherever we go or, whatever we do, there's an innate quality to be a little bit defensive. And we also have this thing about we can feel, there's an innate quality in us that we can feel and understand if someone is truly lying or not, right? Is this person being genuine? Is this person saying what they truly are saying? Some will fall into some traps, but most of the time, there is always this inequality because that's just us trying to understand if there is an opportunity for us to have a discussion together, to be friends and stuff like that. Now, when you go out there, when you talk to multiple folks within your organization, either within your team or with teams that you work with, cross-functional teams that you have to collaborate with, everywhere you go, when you are genuine, when you come across as someone being genuine, someone being honest, it makes a huge difference in the relationship that you build, right? And then comes the next topic in terms of relationship, in terms of networking. You'll see it's a very important topic, but being genuine is very important. So how then do you do that, right? What are the key factors that you want to look at? And here are just some examples that I picked up from broadly from the internet, for you to read. I think that they relate to how I've been successful in my life. But what I would like to talk about is just a couple of examples of what has happened, right? So when I worked in Singapore, the most important thing that I did there was I've always communicated clearly to both all my stakeholders, folks that I work for, cross-functional teams that I talk to, and even senior management and management that I report into. I've always presented to them exactly what I'm working on, exactly what are the risks. Now, this is sometimes what we forget to do, right? We oversell what we're doing. We talk too much about how great in terms of what we're doing because we think that's how people love you and think great of you. But that's not all the thing you always think about presenting all the facts, including the risks, because then then and only then can you win the respects, and you will come across being genuine because you are presenting all the facts clearly to your stakeholders and everyone understands where you're coming from. You want to also present things like, why are you doing what you're doing? It's important. Don't get into this ego trip of, okay, this is my product, this is my world, so therefore I'll do it the way I want to do it. Sharing as much as you can usually takes you very, very far in terms of how you build relationships as well. Okay. So I, at least within my organization now, a couple of examples I can give you, right? So I'm in charge of two very big products that you're looking to grow and build across the world. And my stakeholders are twofold, right? So we have customers within the organization and customers outside the organization. Remember, as a global product owner, I deal with an organization that, I've got regional customers, and then they then talk to our external customers. I'm asking the sales teams, the product teams in the region who talk to the sales customers. Now, one of the challenges that I always have to face on a day-to-day basis and manage is I've got a finite set of resources, right? It's not infinite. A lot of people think, oh, I can always put something through and then I'll get the money and I can build it. No, I've got finite resources. Funds are finite. And I have to build this against what capacity I have, in terms of the number of folks who can put this together. At the same time, my stakeholders are folks in two different regions who are competing for these resources. Both are asking, hey, I need multiple features because my customers are asking for it. So how do I manage this? How do I balance the ask that's coming across both? The way I do this is by presenting and clearly articulating to these folks what are the process I have in place, telling them exactly where my capacity lines are, informing them how and when do I prioritize the different efforts, giving them clarity behind the scenes. What's the process that I've applied to achieve this, right? Not just going back to them and saying, hey, the feature that you asked, I cannot prioritize it. And that becomes a tough conversation because then they think that I'm hiding stuff. I am doing stuff behind the scenes that they don't know. So it's important to constantly give your stakeholders a view of why you're doing what you're doing and the reasons for what you're doing, right? And giving them. Another good example here I would like to bring out is recently we had one of our products, we had a massive issue in terms of it was down for some technical reasons, close to 1 or 2 hours, something like that, right? And the impact was huge in terms of our customers here, and obviously it's being banks, right? So there's many transactions. I'm not talking about Mastercard as a whole, as your card, as you use your cards globally, but one more subsystems, which is completely different systems. And what happened there was when I talked to my team, I told them, let's make sure we go out there and communicate, inform everyone of what's happening clearly in terms of, okay, have we identified the issue? Are we looking to solve it? How long is it going to take? Even if we don't know how long it's going to take, we need to make sure we communicate that and make sure we tell this across everyone what the issue is. And the quicker we tell the customer, the better, right? I mean, obviously in this case, the customer got to know already, but the better way was if you could have preempted the customer, tell them, hey, this is an issue, and we're working through that. Instead of that whole incident being an incident that everyone would have been pointing fingers and screaming at us, it turned out to be an incident that everybody now within the organization, who was getting screamed at by the customer, by the way, right, turned back at us and saying, thank you so much for working through this. I know you guys are working through this. Please let us know how we can help you in any way. We literally got support coming back to us, from the teams. To me, that was an amazing experience, because the more transparent we were, the more we could rally folks within the organization to be with us through that journey, right? These difficult times. Don't forget, again, these are customer facing roles, customer relationship folks, account managers who were talking to the customers, who were screaming at them. Okay, they were literally screaming at them. But instead, they're coming to us and saying, how can we help you? Because we were in the forefront. We went out there, talked to the customers. We were also talking to customers. We were talking to individual customers. We were presenting to them all the issues they're facing. What are the steps you're taking to recover? How are we looking to get this across the line, right? The first 2 days, we didn't have no solution. We did not know how to solve it. But we constantly were telling folks how to get there, how we were going to try to get there. By second day, we had a resolution. 24 hours, within 48 hours, we had a resolution. We informed all our stakeholders quickly about it, and immediately we started producing reports back outside. So this is the work that most of my team did. And to me, what I took back from that lesson was interesting, that we were able to rally the support of the teams despite of an issue that blew out of proportion, right? In terms of tech. But the entire MasterCard organization was behind us. They were actually helping us, and we were operating as a team together. That to me, is another example of why transparency is important. Don't hide things, right? Don't keep it behind and say, oh, okay, let me try to fix it. Let me try to fix it, and then when it's fixed, then I'll go out there and say this is so that's I see someone from the panel is asking what was the issue. I rather not say it, because then again, this is internal within MasterCard. But there was let's put it to say that it was a big impact to our customers. Again, this is not the core functionalities in MasterCard. Like we talk about credit cards and all the stuff. None of those services in MasterCard, they just work forever. They're fantastic in terms of how we're like 99.9% uptime. So that's a different platform also. This is more of a internal B2B platform that we had built together. So that's transparency. These are examples I'm hoping to share with you in terms of why transparency is important, why it's important that your stakeholders understand what you're doing, and you must always keep that communication channel going. Menaka, we can move to the next one. Networking. So this is very, very important in a large organization, multinational corporation especially, or when you're spread out across different offices or geographies. Even if you're in one office, I think it's still very important in terms of building a network, because that's the only way folks get to know you, right? There's two ways of doing this. A couple of ways of getting there to do this. So we'll talk about a few in terms of what has worked for me. There's one colleague of mine. I admire him very much. He's a senior executive now within MasterCard. He was ruthless in networking. He was fantastic in terms of being on networking. When he comes to the office, literally 60 to 70% of the time, all he does is works on networking, right? Again, this is about building relationship, talking to folks, getting feedback about what's happening in their world, understanding the environment is so important, because you get things done quicker than ever when you have got a good network of colleagues that you're friends with. Not just internally, obviously you want to think about externally as well. When you're talking with your customers, when you're talking with stakeholders that you're working with, and beyond, people you don't know is folks whom you should also strive to look to network and get to know, right? This is very important. So again, I give the example of this individual who does. He's a senior executive. Now, one of the reasons for that is because he works to understand folks, right? Be with people, build relationship, and whatever he suggests is usually in collaboration with all these teams that he's put together. That I think is one example of doing it. Now, not all of us might have the bandwidth, to say 70, 80% of the time I'm out there just networking. Obviously, you have a day job. Another way of doing this is do it in line with the work that you're doing, right? So that has been the in my life, I would say the approach that I took. In other words, when I'm working through a project, I would make sure to go and connect with every individual in the project, right? So I would not wait for my meetings to happen, and that's when I talk to them, right? So I would go back, use that as an excuse to, create a session, a quick working session with a one-on-one session, just to get to know my stakeholders, who I'm working with, and also again cross-functional teams. Same thing. You want to make sure you build the rapport, you build the relationship, understand what their needs are, understand where they're coming from, what is crucial to them, what's not crucial for them, and by doing so, you will slowly see you building up a network. Right? Again, going back to transparency, being honest, being candid, talking about, you will build a respect with some of these folks. So when I started in MasterCard, especially in Singapore, so I started MasterCard in Singapore in the year 2006, we had about 80 or 90 folks in the organization, right? Without me knowing, within 3 or 4 years, and through this, being honest, being candid, working with folks, understanding what their needs are, and this is through the projects that I'm working with, right? And then going back and building relationships. There was a folks even 2 or 3 levels above me, so management above me, knew of the kind of person that I was, and when I come to the knowledge that I have and how genuine I was, were key factors that gave me a good reputation in the organization. And I didn't even realize that, until 4 or 5 years later, when I was talking to someone else, or when suddenly out of the blue, a senior executive would call me to the room just to have a chat. I never reached out to that person before. All of that, was because I realized was all of this networking I've done with my peers, right? And one level up, some of the conversations I had. They were very, I realized then that, how important this was. And then if I needed something done, I knew exactly who to go to, right? In an organization like this is very, very important. What happened when I joined MasterCard in Purchase, New York, and this is in 2015, when I moved to New York, my manager asked me to do something which was very unique. Okay, now remember, in Singapore, I had already built a good network, and this is I was been there for close to 9 years. And then now I'm moving to Purchase. It's a different environment altogether. And I suddenly felt like fish out of water, because I hardly knew anyone in the organization there, in the headquarters, right? And now I had to go and build this relationship again and work my way to build a strong reputation. And that was a tough battle. But my manager at that point in time, he said, just go and set one-on-one with people you think you're going to work with, or one-on-one chat, coffee chat or something, simple 15 minutes, 30 minutes coffee chat, just to get to know them, tell them what you're doing, and ask, how can you help them and work with projects with them. And that was something very, very successful in terms of how it helped me. And that's literally, some of that work that I did there is what gave me my promotion, the recent promotion last year. So that is another way you can look at getting, expanding your network. Look out for, a skip level conversation or a level up or your manager's peers. Just set some time, have a conversation, tell them what you're doing so that they know who you are and what you're doing. And incidentally, the manager that I work with in Purchase, he hired me from Singapore. And the reason why he hired me from Singapore was because I did a project for him in Singapore. And remember, he's a different team altogether when he was in Singapore, right? Completely different team. He did something else. He asked, and in passing, again, in the hallway, interesting that Phil was talking about this, usually in the hallway or in passing or when you're having conversations in a group, he would ask me, and because the reputation was built, he asked me, hey, can you help me with a problem that I had? And this is outside, again, my main responsibility. I went out there and I said, hey, sure, let me look to see how I can help you with that. And I used my network. I used the relationships that I had within the organization to put a demo for him. He was looking to build a demo to take to his customer, because no one has done this before. No one could put together an end-to-end demo working within a test environment to present to customers, right? No one could do this before. So he asked me if you can help me put something together. I use my network. I use the connections that I have. I use the relationship that I've built with him, because remember, no one is going to do this for free, right? I mean, this is something outside a real customer onboarding process. Helped him build that, put together a demo, and he was truly impressed and happy with what I had done. And it was because of that relationship, again, doing something outside of what was my true mandate or responsibility, helped me build that relationship that I had done with him. And that's basically how I got this opportunity to move to US. And the rest is history. All the stuff that I've done together. We built a close relationship. I still keep in touch with him very, very closely. He's not my manager anymore, but nevertheless, we keep very close ties in terms of. So don't forget all the folks that you build a relationship with. Make sure you keep close tie and continue to build on that, right? So these are some examples of networking. Why it is important. It literally helped me move, give me exposure, and also try something new and expand my knowledge. So that's something on networking. Menaka, we can move to the next slide. Seizing opportunities. So once you've already, you know your passion, you have been honest, we've been transparent with folks, and then you build a good network. Now what starts happening is you will see opportunities coming your way. So remember an example just now I gave you, there was an opportunity when someone just asked me, hey, can you help me put something together, to put a demo together? That was an opportunity, right? You don't look at opportunities as something that is going to take you to the next level or going to give you a better job or what have you. Opportunities are in front of you in many ways, right? And you never know that some of these opportunities will translate to something greater or better in the future. So in that example that I gave you just now, the fact that I helped him out showed him that what I can do. And he was just my peer, right? At that point in time, it's not like I was helping someone above me or what have you. Working with your peers, showing what they can do, building networking, suddenly that will bring about an opportunity. You start seeing opportunities coming your way. The fact that I got a job with MasterCard was an opportunity that I saw that was important to me, and I seized it the moment I saw that it's in line with my passion, in line with it's going to make me happy. It's very much within what I want to achieve. I seized that opportunity. The other thing is also the opportunity that came to move to the US, right? This was a tough decision for me, very tough decision. Being in Singapore, I was already a Singaporean by then. I just had, and I just moved to a new home. I bought a wonderful home. First time I renovated the whole home. And by the way, this is an apartment. I say home in Singapore, it's a small apartment. So, but it's the first time my wife and I, and my family had the opportunity to renovate the whole home. So we spent a lot of money building up the home. My daughter was a teenager at that point in time, so she just hit 13. She's going into 14 that year. Tough time for a teenager, right? Now, at that point in time, my manager, as I was talking about the individual I was working with, he was already in the US. He had moved back to the US, and he was looking to hire. And he pinged me. He somehow, he travels from purchase to Singapore for business trips. At one point in time, he just called me out for lunch. So we went out for lunch just to connect. I knew he was in town. So what I did was I just asked him, hey, do you want to connect? A long time since we chat. That's all I did, And in that chat, in that lunch chat, he said, I have an opportunity happening in the US. Would you like to apply for this option? To me, that was a very tough question. I couldn't say yes or no immediately. It was a very tough question because of what's happening behind the scenes. I just moved, I got a new apartment, my daughter's a teenager, building friends. I try convincing a teenager to move. I tell you, it's the toughest thing you can ever do. No matter how much you can lead in an organization, in your office, if you have your own child as a teenager, trying to convince them is one of the toughest thing you can ever do. So I saw that as a good opportunity to move, and what happened is in that scenario, we moved to. I had to talk to my. I saw that this is a very strong opportunity and something that I should take on, right? And by doing so, I applied for the job, and I decided that I will work through with my family, try to convince my daughter, and move on to the US. And I tell you, that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I took that opportunity, despite it was going to be a little bit inconvenient to my family, despite the fact that I've already come into a very stable position and I was very happy. It was one of the best decisions I made, because when I moved to the US, now today, if you look at my 3 kids, they are very, very happy here. There were a lot more opportunities that presented itself in headquarters, because again, going to headquarters is a lot more opportunities. One of the 2 reasons why I seized this opportunity, one is because it's going to expand my knowledge. It's well within my passion in terms of what I want to do, and it's going to give me opportunities to grow and build stuff for a global organization, right? From a global perspective, wasn't in a regional role. And then secondly, it's going to give me an opportunity to work beyond, outside of Asia. I've always worked within the Asia, so I've traveled from all parts of Asia Pacific, and even Africa. So at one point in time, we were Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa is the region that I covered. Here, there's an opportunity for me to go look beyond, and the key thing here is challenging me beyond my comfort zone. I was able to move out of my comfort zone and try something new and learn. So seizing opportunities, I think, is very, very important that you work on this. So I'm seeing some questions coming in. Kishan, do we answer questions at this time, or do we wait?
Shanthan, I think you should go ahead, and we are having a couple of questions that are coming in. What I'll try and do is I'll try and take the questions and maybe present it to you once you're through with your slides. So yeah, feel free to move on, and then we'll.
Yeah, we're almost done anyway. So the last slide. Thanks. We'll just quickly cover. So now the last slide I would like to present here is talking about this simple quote is important, right? Leadership simply begins with the courage to be yourself, so everyone else can be too, right? I think this is very, very important quote. Now, whatever I presented to you was my journey, my life, and some of the tools that helped me. When you go back after this call, right, I think one thing, if you can take away from this, is understand that it is all within you to harness the qualities that you have to grow, right? It is your time. So another quote, if I would like to present here, is Steve Jobs' quote again. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Only you know what's best for you. You know what is your passion, and here the tools that are presented here can help you, certainly. But it's up to you to take that next step. It is up to you to find the courage to see how great you are and how best you can move forward, right? Don't try to copy someone else, right? That will never work. If you try to copy or be someone else, that is not going to get you anywhere. That's not going to help you in any way. Look at what's your strength. Remember, leaders, if you look at all those great leaders out there, they were always unique. They were a one of a kind, right? Because they were able to harness their individuality. They were able to bring that out very strong and lead others. That's what leaders are. If you look at it, that's basically what's happening. It's okay to emulate and learn from some of the qualities that they have, but ultimately you want to look within and bring your individuality out, bring your strengths out and lead. I think that's very, very important. I'd like to leave you with this guiding principle, besides the first one that I talked about earlier, that you should look at and always work towards to grow. Yeah, I think that's basically what I wanted to cover today. Hopefully you got to learn something from what I have, and it will help you. And yeah, we can definitely make it more interactive now and open up for questions.
Thanks, Shanthan. That was really a wonderful session. So we had, this is the second leadership session that I've been moderating in this festival. And, when I think of topics like critical skills that come up with, that are required for leadership, or yesterday's session was about heartfelt leadership insights. And, one thing I've been reflecting is that it's not rocket science, and all these things are, it's all about simplicity. The way you've kind
Yes,
of put it as, it's simplicity. I mean, these three things I'm definitely going to take back, right? Transparency, networking, and seizing opportunities. It's not rocket science. It's basically in the
exactly,
execution.
exactly.
It's basically in the
Point on.
execution. So I have a couple of questions. So what I'll try and do, Shanthan, is take the passion part of it first. So there are a couple of things on that. So let me get started with one interesting question. So there is a saying that what got you here won't get you there. So it was exciting to know how your passion led to payments and looking at your journey there. And I'm sure along with passion, there's got to be some other sauce in this mix, right? To make it happen. So I know you kind of went on with a couple of things, but what is that? Does passion get you through completely, or what are some of the top three things that you feel is required along with passion?
Yeah, so a good question, right? I think I know I've said that passion will find your way and you will get through, get to see you through success. And I talked about, I love engineering, right? So obviously that was not the case. And everyone being in a Desi family or Indian parents would have brainwashed you from very young. So very similar in my life, when I was in my secondary school or sixth standard or seventh standard, you want to talk about it. My mom knew that I was going to be a doctor, right? So she was brainwashing me to be a doctor. And for 6 years of my life, I knew I was going to be a doctor, right? And guess what? It changed. That whole thing changed. Why did it change? Because again, change is the only constant in the world, and that's one thing you need to accept, right? Change is the only constant in the world, and you need to accept. And the key thing here is you are always learning and enhancing your knowledge. And as you do so, your passion also will shift in terms of what you think is best for you. But there are some things that are underlying that will stay constant. Like for me, the affinity to math, affinity to engineering, the affinity to build something new was very strong, right? So it's not tied to engineering, but it's tied to something, a passion for me to come up with something new. Now, how does that manifest itself will change, definitely, right? How does that change happen? That change happen because you're constantly learning, and that's something you must do. That you must always constantly look to learn and expand. Challenge yourself to do something new. Challenge yourself against something different, right? So that's the other thing. First, learn, constantly keep yourself to understand and be in sync with what's happening in the world. So learn something new. Keep learning. There's always opportunity to learn. Second is challenge yourself. You want to be able to challenge yourself beyond the boundaries that you have, right? That you've been before. So like moving from to engineering to Mastercard was a big change for me. It was a very big change, right? So I did challenge, and within Mastercard, I always challenge myself into something new, a new role, and try something new. So that's very important, right? Don't stay in one stagnant place all the time. Always challenge yourself. So that I think is the two tips I would give in terms of at least what I've given my guided myself or always told myself. When it gets boring, when you think your work that you're doing, and this is the third one perhaps, right? Another simple guidance you can take. When it gets to a point when you're doing your job and you realize you can do it with your eyes closed, right? Literally, you go in there, you don't even have to think, you can respond to your emails. Someone asks you a question, you're able to respond to the question without thinking, without being challenged, then there's time to change. That's a clear time for you to change. Don't be complacent what you're doing, because if you're doing a work that is complacent, that you're already bored doing and you can do with your eyes closed, that means there is time to change because you're not challenged anymore.
Yeah.
So these are the three, kind of almost principles that I follow that helps me with my passion, right? Because they're now also growing, always growing.
Yeah, and that's very interesting, because and for all those audience who were there yesterday and who are actually participating today would see that clear connect between different leaders, that kicking yourself out of comfort zone, challenging
Yes.
yourself often
Yes.
is the common thread there. There's one question on passion, just staying on the thread, right? See, this is VUCA world, volatility, it's a VUCA world, and in that it's very difficult to kind of stick to passion. There is chaos. For example, I don't know how many people have been um, you know have been impacted with this chaos called corona right now in this pandemic situation, and it's not always easy to find what your work that is up to your passion. So there is a question on how do you deal with that? How do you make something that is not your passion and then move on? in this, especially in this world, because there's not a lot of there's a lot of volatility here, and there's a lot of change. So in such a situation, what is your advice?
So this goes back to, age also matters. Commitments that you have in your world also matters. And interesting, there's an interesting quote from, I don't know if you guys have seen the quote from, when the commencement speech that Steve Jobs did some time back, right? He said, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." This is two simple words. He said, "Stay hungry, stay foolish."
Stanford. Yeah.
It sounds counterintuitive in terms of the foolish part. Are you supposed to be smart about what you do, or are you supposed to be foolish now in terms of what you do, right? The reason why he says stay foolish, stay hungry, stay foolish is it ties back again to the notion of being passionate about what you do. Being passionate about what you do can also lead to drastic actions that you might take, right? Drastic actions in terms of, okay, I am going to leave a very comfortable job that I'm doing and go for something new that ties to my passion. And it also could mean you're taking a level down, or this also could mean you're taking a pay cut. And by the way, when I moved from Singapore to New York, okay, mind you, it was a lateral move. That means I was not getting promoted or what have you. And again, mind you, I took a pay cut. So my net value in terms of what I got compensation, I took a pay cut, right? Going forward. So this is also a tough decision in terms of moving forward. Your passion then will inform you best how you would move forward. Would you take that drastic step to move? Obviously within your risk appetite, right? You're not going to move to a job that's going to be very risky, and then you're paying your daughter's medical school bills, what have you, and you can afford those things that you will cover that up. But if you don't tether yourself to any attachments around you and just follow your passion, then you will see the immense success down the line. You'll definitely see that. And that's something that only you can make a decision on in terms of how you move forward. No one can guide you there. Again, going back to my last statement down there, right? Look within yourself to see, how best you can find these opportunities, these success.
And what I loved there is actually the keyword there, something that we have to underscore there in your last response is action, right? And that's where it all begins there. Thanks. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
I'll move on to the networking section. I have a couple of things there lined up there. So there is this interesting concept of we all are separated in this world. The 6th degree of separation is a famous thing that goes on, right? And LinkedIn has kind of really halved it. It's now even the top CEOs in the world are your third connection. If not. So the question really is, with such the shrinking world, at least in a professional sense, I cannot say this for every other thing, but at least in a professional sense, of people who are connected part of LinkedIn, which is what networking is all about, right? So Shanthan, so I have the top CEO or the top influencer leader just a maximum 3 connections away or 2 connections away. How do I connecting? Access is not the problem of access is now solved. You don't have to struggle to get connected to someone. It's easy. I think the core aspect is, what do you do after connecting? How do you take it forward? What are your suggestions, practical suggestions for nurturing these connections and taking it forward to something, from the connection count to actually a meaningful connection on LinkedIn? How would you define this, and what are your real-time practical advices for such strategies for such moves?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is definitely one of good platforms for you to build connections, definitely. But I've not used LinkedIn as my main approach, right? For me, it's more of like the interpersonal interactions is so much better than doing this. So, but having said that, in the world of COVID-19, that has drastically changed, right? But actually, to a certain extent, it's changed to better as well. Again, goes back to your character and your individual and stuff like that. So there's a 2-part question there in terms of how you would expand your network. So this is going back to, again, in your day-to-day work. One way you can do that is, with the partners that you're working with, you can look to, ping them separately within the organization, or customers outside the organization. You can ping them separately, saying who you are, and then build a network that way. And then bring the connection in LinkedIn. Right? So LinkedIn is more, I use LinkedIn more for the latter in terms of maintaining that relationship, keeping the connection going. I usually typically use that. But the first one, usually it's easier for you to try to connect people within the organization you're working with and the folks that you interact externally, right? That's one thing. Or to your friend's friend. An introduction to a friend is usually much better than you going try to do it directly. That's also an approach. The second thing is once you get to know some of the senior folks, or you want to look at what interests them most. It's important to understand what's interesting them, what's top of mind in their world, and you use that as the reason to go back, to keep that relationship going, to keep that conversation ongoing. That's very important. Ask them, how can you help you? Get them to the point about, okay, what's top of mind, and then see how you can help them in that approach. And maybe you do a side project to go back and say, hey, I did a review of this, and here is perhaps something that you think about. If you tie things back to what's top of mind to some of these individuals, then when you go back to them, it becomes a very meaningful conversation. And not only that, they want to maintain that relationship. They want to keep that relationship going. And that's very important in terms of how you do. Remember, their time span is short. So make sure when you go there, you make sure it's a meaningful conversation that you're having with them. That's crucial.
Shanthan, I think it was excellent. I'll tell you why. I think the common theme, and I can't help but actually connecting all these things. In fact, the gist of what you said is empathy, right? We came back to having, being empathetic to what the other person wants. And, that is the key to kind of building great networks and nurturing great networks. Wonderful. And then, there is, let me just move on, and probably, there are a lot coming in. Let me just check if I have something interesting coming in. Okay. So the other point I just wanted to kind of bring in, while I think there is a question that is coming in, I think it's while it's still coming in. So you spoke about seizing opportunities, and you also spoke about, in a sense that, the way you just spoke about how the top of mind, trying to understand what the top of the mind of your network connect is, and things like that. So there is an interesting mindset that, at least as part of my alma mater, what I learned was paying it forward. That is, trying and giving back to the community, like, the way you just started your presentation. I think that is a very valuable advice. And how has that helped? How has that helped shape your in seizing of opportunity? When you mentioned about the three strategies that you usually take, or you prescribe for us to seize the opportunity. How does paying it forward come into this? How can all the audience that are listening to you kind of work on paying it forward, giving back to the community, in terms of actually reflecting on what you just said about seizing opportunities?
So that's also actually another interesting network opportunity, right? Like you said. So giving back to the community can go in multi-folds, right? So one is your local communities, in terms of how you work there, provide assistance there, and there's so many ways to do that, right? Today you can think about how you give, like a simple thing as maybe an online donation. That's one simple thing. The other one is going into community sessions and doing that. Again, in COVID-19, that's a struggle. Within the organization that you're working with, or your customers you're working with, there are especially there's a lot of opportunities for you to pay forward if you think about it. So I gave an example in my speech earlier where I did a project with this person, right? And it was completely outside my day-to-day mandate. Right? It's not something that, literally I'm a very busy person, and and here I saw a good opportunity. And this was again not because I was building a network. This was because, again, tied back to my passion. It was very interesting. I thought it was logical. I thought it was going to help the organization. I thought it was also, and it was part of my passion. So what I said was, okay, I will help this individual do this project. Again, outside the scope of what I think. And lo and behold, he became a manager in the future, right? Wow. And this individual was the person, like I said, who got promoted, went to US, and he thought of me and asked me, hey, what you want to join? And when I did this for him before, that was not my intention. My intention was, again, tied back to my passion. I thought this is really going to do well. And I thought this was very meaningful. That's why even the output was fantastic, right? So again, it goes. If you go in with just purely the intention of, okay, I'm doing this because I'm going to network, I want to impress him, I want to make sure I can get the next promotion, I'm going to do well, that's not going to help. That's definitely not going to help. You want to tie it back to the passion. What is your objective? Your goal in life and what you want to do. And then you suddenly see your output becomes incredible, and the networking becomes strong.
Absolutely, Shanthan. I think you just answered my first question also with this, which is uh, how do you give outlet to a passion, which is by paying it forward, doing it without any expectation. Passion does Your
Yeah.
job doesn't necessarily have to be your outlet for your passion. It can be various other things that you do for others through networking, seizing opportunities, and that's how you kind of take it forward and build yourself as a leadership roles. I think, Shantan, it was a wonderful conversation having with you, and thank you so much for being part of this. Uh, I think we have a feedback on the session that's coming up. Yeah, but before that, uh, here is a small certificate of appreciation. So, COVID times calls for, we have reimagined everything that kind of goes in now. So it's a digital certificate that will probably come to you. So kindly accept that from our team. And we are
Thank
amazed.
you, Kishan.
We are glad to have you here, and we look forward to having more interactions with you.
Awesome.
Thank
It
you.
was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kishan. Thank you, Shanthan, for this wonderful session and talk. So before we leave for the day, I have a very interesting announcement to make. So Naresh Neelakantan, you are the award winner for the day for the best question asked. Congrats, Naresh. We will reach out to you with your gift. Please scan this QR code and send us your testimonials. It's important for us. And before you leave, tomorrow we have lined up some two more great sessions by Stephanie Mango and Rajesh Sethi. So we start at 8 p.m. tomorrow also, tomorrow night. So please don't miss it. This is a great opportunity to listen to these leaders who have made a mark in the world. And hence it's time to close. So as our esteemed speaker Shanthan said, you have limited time, so don't waste it living someone else's life. So with that note, let's close today. And thank you everybody for attending. And I hope that I'll see you all tomorrow at 8 p.m. Please remember. Good night.